something happened and I got really busy. Nothing happened. I made myself a creamy and then just started eating it. And then I looked at the time and I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be on my live stream. So you get me from my kitchen. Audio is not going to be great, but we're still going to do this because I promised you that we would do this today. So again, welcome back to the Mindset Mirror Mixer, your health happy hour. Grab your drink, do your thing, and let's get started. Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, the podcast where we debunk the eat less, move more, shrink more mentality and focus on what really matters, which includes your relationship with your body, food, self-worth, and the behaviors that align with all of those. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, licensed therapist with specialized training in food and body obsession, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. At the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast, we believe what you say in your mind, you see in the mirror. So let's have a conversation about that. All right. We're even going to use the wrong preview. Jeez Louise. All right. So today's conversation is a really, really important conversation because if you watch any sort of social media, reality TV, we've talked about this a lot before on this live stream about the obsession with thinness and how the availability of GLP-1s, especially when it comes to celebrities, is now recreating the beauty standard. But what we're not talking about is the addiction that weight loss and seeing yourself in a smaller and smaller body can bring. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys something that a client had shared with me. And it's a clip from the reality show, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So if you're not familiar with that show, it follows along some, moms in Utah, and they all are beautiful women, and they are really like glammed up. They have, they're mom talk, and there's a lot of focus on them, right? There's a lot of focus on them and their bodies. And one of them, her name is Layla. And Layla was never very big. None of them were very big. But recently on an episode, she talked about how she can't stop injecting herself with Ozempic. So I can't find the exact reel that someone sent to me, so I found a little something. So here we go. Let's play it for you guys.
Mormon Wives star Layla Taylor recently opened up about having an ED in a recent interview. She says at 5'10", she weighs only 99 pounds. She cites an addiction to GLP-1s, as well as the culture in Utah of beauty maxing and being really thin, as contributing to her issues with eating. Now, my question is, who is the doctor prescribing her this medication? As far as I know, GLP-1 was only meant to be for people who really needed it, people with diabetes or people who really did have an issue with their weight and needed help losing the weight. Now, I'm not against GLP-1s for people who really need it, but I am not for just giving out GLP-1 like candy, like some of these doctors are doing. I think it is very harmful for women's health, for everyone's health, especially since we do know that there are side effects to the medication. We don't know the long-term side effects. And overall, I think that it is not a healthy route to go on just to tell people to lose weight. They can just take a medication rather than doing the hard work themselves. It's not sustainable. Most people who get off GLP-1s, the people who actually need it and actually have a weight problem, they gain the weight back. And then for the people who really don't need it, who just want to lose the vanity weight, which I think is totally fine if you do it in a healthy way, but I can see how it can become an obsession. 5'10" at 99 pounds is not healthy. I feel really bad for her. I hope she gets some help. She's a beautiful girl. I want to hold the doctors accountable who are prescribing people like this medication when they don't need it.
Yes, absolutely.
Mormon Wives star Layla Taylor.
Stop sharing my screen. So let me make sure I'm not sharing. Okay. So I had to move over here because, everything is everything is off today, including my battery. But you get to see my beautiful mountain. So she is a very tall woman at 99 pounds. And in the episode, she talks about, she's crying and she's talking about how painful it is for her to go to sleep at night because her bones, there's no fat on her body, and her bones are hitting each other. And I really wanted to bring up this conversation because we have this tool available to us, and it's very readily available to most people at this point, that if used improperly, it can kill you, right? Obviously, I think about GLP-1. So I don't know if you guys know this, but there's such a, I know this is going to be annoying to you guys. There is an eating disorder called diabulimia. And diabulimia is when you are diabetic and you restrict your insulin. And what ends up happening is your body starts to basically eat itself away, right? So you need insulin and you restrict it in a way. Please, nobody do this. This is not for you. This is not for information on how to be a diabulimic. I've worked with about 3 clients in my time as a therapist who were diabulimics. And GLP-1s, now obviously it's not as life or death, but over a long period of time, this is a very powerful drug. It is very much the most potent appetite suppressant that we've seen since I've been alive for 43 years. And it is, if used incorrectly, like Layla is using it, can cause you to be so emaciated that we're seeing these now very skinny bodies. And I want to talk about the psychological aspect of that. And I'm going to start with my own personal experience. So thank you to you guys who are here. Sorry I was so late, but I appreciate you showing up. That's why we're doing it from the kitchen, because I literally had an OF moment. I'm not on my live stream. I'm just sitting here with my dogs like in La La Land. Luckily, I just got my hormones tested, and I am low on DHEA and testosterone, so I'm starting that, and I hope that I don't have this freaking brain fog. Anyway, it's a fun game. So I want to talk about my experience. So for y'all here in the chat, if you could describe the feeling that you've had in your life when you were at your lowest weight, what that feeling would be. Now, I talked about this a bit last week, that for me, the feeling was grandiose. I could mess with my head and train it to not feel hunger. I would be able to sit through hunger pangs. I'd be able to be fine with being unrecovered. I would push through. I could train my brain to like dissociate from myself. And I got compliments. I got compliments because of that. I had people ask me, what do you do? Will you train me? Like, even bad compliment or bad statements towards me. Go eat a cheeseburger. It pumped up my ego. It gave me this idea that I could do this thing that nobody else could do, right? I could restrict my food. I could eat super healthy. I could work out all the time. And I was superior. And if you're in this place of superiority, and not everyone who loses weight feels superior, virtuous, and in control. Yes, Rebecca. Not everyone who loses weight feels superior, but what Rebecca has said is like in control. Like I have control of my life because I am in this smaller body. And for me, it was very much, yes, feeling empowered, feeling like I could do anything, right? And like we talked about in the webinar last time, if you guys want to go back, it's up on the channel. The anytime we're performing or at a minimum we're receiving our validation through external sources, we are leasing that empowerment. We are leasing that control. We are leasing that feeling of goodness. We're leasing it from everyone else. And maybe leasing's not the right word, but I like to say that to clients. You're leasing that feeling, you don't own it. You don't own it because it was never yours in the first place, right? The problem with external validation and extrinsic motivation is that when we get it, we get the praise, we get the validation, especially for someone who never had it before, especially if you're coming from a larger body. Now, full transparency for me, I've never lived in a larger body. And I only know that experience from my clients trusting me with their own stories. And it's terrible. I mean, the way you're treated in the medical field, the way you're treated in society, the way you're treated and the assumptions made about you, it's terrible. So not so you're someone who starts in a larger body maybe, and you lose the weight and you get the praise, right? You get all of that from other people. And that's the part that becomes addicting. It's not the thinness that is addicting. It's what I get from being thin that I never received. And most likely, I've never received this. I have so many clients who talk about the fact that their entire lives, they have been, their bodies have been picked apart. They've been put on diets very young. They've never been told that they're just beautiful or like enough as is. There's always been a part of them that needed to be fixed. And of course, society continues that conversation. So for the first time in their life, you're getting praise and attention. And I use this example a lot, but I think it's so important. There is a woman, her name is Janelle Roner on TikTok. And Janelle had allegedly lost all this weight using a macronutrient diet, right? Like following macronutrients. And she would show what she ate. She's a nurse. And she started building a very large community around it. And she looked fine. Like she looked great. And she did her little recipes. And then she started she started charging for her coaching, right? Which that's another topic. And it turns out she was on Ozempic, a GLP-1, to like lose the last 10 pounds, right? And her community was very angry at her, because they're spending the $199 on these macro plans, and she's just, injecting herself and ultimately losing the last 10 pounds. People were pissed. And that's a great example of how that external validation and extrinsic motivation around weight loss, and not even it's just the validation. Let's focus just on that, because the motivation, we're already past that at this point. How addicting it can be when we are afraid to lose praise. Because as humans, we have two basic psychological needs: love and connection, we put those in one, and safety, right? And praise for us gives us both. Because if we are praised and we are loved, then we're going to be safe. Because someone's going to take care of us, right? Even if it's, Stephanie from Colorado who buys our product. Like, in your brain, you think that person cares about me, right? Or your friends, obviously. If people are starting to ask you for advice, it makes you feel needed and wanted. And if I'm needed and wanted, the tribe's not going to get rid of me, because I have a purpose here. So what's the opposite of that? Right? What is the opposite of praise, validation, being needed and wanted? Right? Having fans, having people who care about you. Well, the opposite is loneliness, disconnection. death. If we think about being kicked out of a tribe, right? So if our survival, and I know that sounds dramatic, but if our survival depends on us keeping these roles of praise and validation and all the things I talked about, we will do whatever it takes to continue. And that is where we go from weight loss as something we do for health to weight loss as something that turns very sharp and can turn into, like Layla, an eating disorder, right? Now, for me, I loved the high. I loved the high of having a fucking six pack. I loved the high of being able to wear clothing. I remember buying a size 2 and I was like, I'm wearing a size 2 as a grown ass woman, and I'm very like curvy, so I was in a size 2. I remember I told you guys this, the esthetician was like, your face is so sunken in, you need to get filler. And I was like, ha 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 ha, I'm so skinny. And I'm making light of it, but like my therapist brain knows how distorted it was. And if it wasn't for a few very important people in my life intervening, who knows where I would be right now, you know? And one person who didn't even realize that she intervened just asked me one question. And it was, well, what's the end result? And in my head, I'd never asked myself that. So, like for the Laylas of the world, or even yourselves listening to this, like, what is the end result? Because I was 15% body fat, and I want to show you guys a picture. Let's see if I can do this while I'm talking. I was 15% body fat. I didn't have a period because I didn't have a uterus, but I'm sure that I would not have also had a period at that time. As I mentioned, was gaunt and just very depleted. But more importantly, not more importantly, but to make the point, I wanted more. I did not want to be 15%. 15% sounded high to me. I wanted to be 9%, which, just to help you understand, 9% body fat on a woman is essential. Like, that is essential. We cannot drop underneath that. It can be very dangerous for us. So, where is that picture at? Hang on one sec. It's somewhere in here. Let's see. Here it is. All right, where am I at? I lost myself. Can you guys still see me? I hope you can still see me when I'm doing that. All right, let's share my screen. Entire screen. Okay, share. All right, so this is the photo of me where I thought I needed to lose more weight. And I am completely gaunt in my face. I looked like Skeletor, and I thought I was still not lean enough. And so, like I had mentioned, coming back to the statement of like, what was the end result? There was not going to be an end result. I would have kept going. I would have kept going if my friends didn't intervene and just be like, what are you doing here? Right? So my question to you guys listening is, if you are on a weight loss journey, what is the end result? What is enough? And I want you to recognize if we are moving the goalposts of what enough is, because it happens. It will happen to 9 out of 10 people, maybe 10 out of 10 people. when it comes to weight loss, especially because most people are losing weight to satisfy others and what they think they need to look like and what is going to bring them love and what's going to bring them connection. So my question to you is, what is the end result? And from my experience, and you've been listening to this live stream or my podcast enough, you'll know what I'm about to say is the weight loss will, the goalpost will constantly move if you don't do the work on yourself. Because what you're ultimately trying to obtain is those two things through the weight loss, the love and connection and the safety. But we've got to create that in ourselves. We have to create that connection to ourselves. We have to love ourselves. We have to keep ourselves safe. And being safe also requires you to feed yourself, right? So what are the signs? I don't have any notes for this, by the way, so I'm just winging it, which is fun. Increased food noise. Now, we talk about food noise a lot in regards to Ozempic. I've shared my story about food noise, and for me, food noise was, am I going to hit my macros? Am I going to stay in my macros? What am I going to do to hit my macros? When do I get to eat next? What can I put in this food to make it like more full or filling? I would think about food all day long. Yeah. I would think about food in the way of, how can I add volume to my food? I will eat whatever it takes to add volume to my food, just to eat more but stay in my rigid calorie range. So food obsession, but more not in the way that we hear it on media. It's more of starting to become very rigid, starting to become less social. That's another sign that weight loss is turning into an addiction, where you are not following through with social events. For me personally, if I went out with my friends, I drank soda water and got a crudité. Like, that's how I ate. Or if they had a ceviche, I was allowed to have a ceviche. While my girlfriends are drinking wine, having charcuterie, I'm eating fucking vegetables and drinking soda water. Okay. When is it becoming an addiction? Where you set a goal for yourself, I already said this, and you look in the mirror and you're like 5 pounds more, 10 pounds more, right? 2 pounds, whatever it is. When you start realizing that my original goal is not enough and that I'm continuing to move the goalposts, which I already talked about. When you start to obsess over your movement, so having to get up, I fucking did this shit, get up and like walk around the house just to hit the 12,000 steps, right? Because in your brain, guys, you think that we have to do these very rigid things. And you're so fearful of gaining the weight that you will do them. You will do whatever it takes to keep the weight loss off. While in your mind being completely anxiety ridden that you're going to gain it back. Right? No one talks about this. No one talks about the cost of being lean. I was on a podcast of a gal who was a bodybuilder, or like a bikini model. And we talked about this very interesting thing. So when she would be like at 150 pounds, right? And when she was on stage, say she was like 135. And I can't wait to read this. She would go from 150 to 145 and be like, yes, 145, like, woohoo, right? So then she'd go to stage weight, which stage weight, she's like gaunt, 138 was stage weight, I think. And then from 138 back to 145 was misery. The same weight that was celebrated became misery when it came to her stage weight, or when it came up from stage weight, right? I don't know where I was going with that. I don't remember. This is why I have to have notes, you guys. So, the signs and symptoms. So, obsessing whatever it will take to keep this going, because I'm anxiety ridden. I'm consumed with this idea that if I don't do the things that got me here, I'm going to get fat, I'm going to gain all the weight, and more importantly, and you all know what I'm talking about, and I'm probably one of the first people to admit this, what will they think about me? What will they think about me in the fitness community when I show up to that event and I don't look this way anymore? Because when I look this way, everyone's like, "What's up, Christina?" What will they think of me? These are all things that I went through. And there are certain, I can think in my mind the certain people that I was concerned with that probably don't give a shit about any of that. But for you guys, is what will they think of me? My friends, my family, if I put on 5 pounds? Because maybe you need to put on 5 pounds. Maybe your extra 5 pounds is actually where your body wants to live peacefully, right? Or 10 pounds, you know? But you're so fearful of what everyone else is going to think of you. This is where we get into this kind of addiction of, I can't go there. I refuse to go back there. So I will do whatever it takes. I will lie. I will steal. I will cheat my way through this and do whatever it takes. And sometimes I will, not sometimes, most times I will continue maladaptive ways or disordered ways of getting here. All right, taking a little break. Let's got some questions. As an eating disorder expert, do you think there's a connection between eating disorders and the need to control something else in their lives? And how does this manifest? Absolutely. So, with my clients who have eating disorders, now, eating disorders are a highly, highly complex diagnosis. There are several variables, from genetic variables to epigenetics and what goes on in the family system, family history is taken into consideration, environment, society as a whole, but also there are actually some early childhood medical diagnoses that can increase the likelihood, or not likelihood, but can increase in onset of an eating disorder. So things like strep throat in early childhood can develop into something called pandas, which is somewhat like an eating disorder. But also early childhood autoimmune issues can develop into ED as a OCD. So it's just very layered, is what I want to say. However, it's never about being thin. It's never about the food. It is about, for a lot of people, control. And I have no control anywhere else in my life, so therefore I find control in this. I had this conversation in a client's weekly review today. And I told her, I said, I know you come from a household of 8 children. And for her, it happened to be cleaning that gave her a sense of control. But in that scenario, setting yourself apart is important, because remember, what are the 2 things? Love and connection and safety. If I set myself apart and I'm the thin one or the beautiful one, that gives me a sense of control over my safety, over my love and connection. Let's flip the script here. Trigger warning. SA, right? I was abused, right, as a child. We have to remember, eating disorders aren't always just anorexia, right? People can be in different size bodies and have an eating disorder. However, for clients who are abused and dissociated, and they don't live inside their bodies but need a sense of safety, they will get so emaciated that they will look less like a woman, be less attractive, or the opposite. They will eat in excess to be less attractive. That's control, right? That's controlling, that's creating a sense of safety through food, through my body. And so many other things, you guys. I mean, but yes, the answer to your question is yes. A variable in this is a sense of control, but it's not always the variable because there are so many other reasons. It's just such a complex diagnosis. The other question is, remember when Teresa Giudice from Real Housewives of New Jersey was training for the fitness competition and she brought her own food to the restaurant? I don't remember that, but guess who's done that? I have. Yeah, oh my gosh. So not as realistic as originally thought. That question definitely causes some rethinking. Yes. So, yeah, I brought my food to things. It's so sad. It's so sad. But let's talk about, I want to make sure I get through the signs and symptoms. Um, Eating disorder, obviously, I'm not necessarily going into that, even though we've talked about it here. I'm talking more about the obsession with weight loss around like we're towing the line when it comes to an eating disorder. So again, just to go through those with you guys, obsession around food, obsession around exercise. And what I mean obsession is not just like, oh, I think about it sometimes. It is constant. You are in a constant state of anxiety. You're in a constant state of fear. You are hyper focused on what goes in your mouth, and God forbid you have a food that is outside of your plan. You're going to figure out a way, and this falls into eating disorder territory. You're going to figure out a way to purge that thing. And in our healthy life, right, and in the health world, we just over exercise because we don't throw things up. We just over exercise. Okay. When it becomes this, we're not as social, right? We're bringing our food. We're not eating at events. We are not seeing people because we're in the gym all the time. Again, towing the line. But in our society, share what people told you when you were doing these things. Share what people would say about you. Like, you have so much discipline. I wish I have as much discipline as you. Like, how do you do it all the time? Oh, I should have woke up and worked out with you too. No, the fuck you shouldn't. When we're in Mexico for Memorial Day weekend, drinking shots of tequila, we should be drinking shots of tequila. Not my ass getting up and creating a whole ass workout for myself in this like courtyard of our hotel room. That was what I did. Right? Now, I like working out on a vacation here and there, but you get what I'm saying. It was like every day, and then I would like, it was a lot. Okay. Again, it's socially accepted. So if you are struggling with this or someone you know is struggling with this, there's a few things that we need to do. One of the main things is we have to reconnect to our bodies. And this is the hard work. This is the hardest work because we have not been listening to our body at all. I shut it off. I shut it off. I did not listen to the pain. I did not listen to the torn labrum. I did not listen to the hunger. I did not listen to the fatigue. I did not listen to the fact that when I stood up, I got dizzy. Okay? Didn't listen to it. So we've got to start listening because everything else that I'm going to teach you, you can't do it if you're not listening to yourself. So how do we do that? Well, the easiest way to do it is to set an alarm on your phone and just say, what do I feel like right now? And be really honest with yourself because that validation ego part of your brain that's like, no, like don't listen to your body. If you listen to your body, we're not safe. Like people are not gonna want to like be kind to you or praise you. Shut the fuck up, right? We've got to override the ego. The ego's job is to keep our wounded part of us safe, okay? And it will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. So, well, I'm really hungry, or God, I am just exhausted, or my body hurts. My body really hurts right now. And just for the first couple times doing that, just be aware. Just be aware of it. And it may not be as dramatic as I'm talking about. I'm just talking about my own experience, and it was that bad. Um, but it might just be like, I'm really tired today. Like, I don't want to work out, right? But what, when we're in that obsessed, addictive part of the cycle, that we won't listen to that and we'll go to the gym. So 1 to 2 times a day, what am I feeling? This is a good gauge to you guys listening to who may not experience, who may be like, nah, that's not me. Test it out. Test it out. Are you starving and not realizing you're starving? Right? Are you overtraining and not realizing you're overtraining? Once we do this a couple of weeks, then the next goal is to meet the need. So if I am hungry, I will feed myself. If I am tired, I can go outside and get some sunshine. I can sleep, of course. Food will be helpful with fatigue as well. Uh, if I need recovery, I'm going to take a day off or maybe just move into some walking. And here's the kicker, I'm not increasing my steps that day if I'm not training. I know all the fucking tricks. I know all the tricks. So you can't trick me. Especially because I worked with people with eating disorders. Now, again, I towed the line. I towed that line well. We're not doing extra steps. We're just going outside and we're using a walk to move our bodies, right? Or play with our dog, right? Then from there, we must continue that check-in process and start to make adjustments as we're noticing these patterns. And what I mean by adjustments is we need to start moving back slowly from the activity and increasing slowly the food intake. And what I just said would scare the shit out of a lot of people. Wait, what? You're telling me to move less and eat more? Yeah, it's exactly what I'm telling you to do. When I learned to move less and eat more and do it in a way that physiologically was physiologically healthy, if you will, it changed my life. It changed my life. But I did it slowly because I was working out 7 days a week, some of them 2 a days. And I would do 6 days a week, right? Or 7 days a week, one time a day. Then 6 days a week, then 5, 4, and I stayed around 4. Sometimes I'll go down to 3, sometimes I'll go up to 5, but never more than 5. And if I'm at 5, it's usually like a 20-minute something once a week. So you'll slowly start to bring yourself back. This is how I work with my clients who have this food and body obsession, right? The same with food. We slowly increase the calories. So 25 calories a day or a week. If it's really a struggle for you, 50 if it's kind of a struggle, 100 if you're like, I'm fucking done. Like, let's get there. Let's get here. But we don't want to just jump up to our calories because when you've been in such a restricted state for so long, your metabolism does adapt to being in that state. Your resting metabolism is essentially lower. So if you start eating at, say you're eating 1,300 calories, if you start eating at 2,300 calories, that's not going to be good for your mental health. So slowly bringing those calories up and then bringing that movement down. When you do this, we're connected to our bodies. We're understanding what's going on. We're meeting the needs. We're reducing the stress we're putting on our body, because that's ultimately this up and down that we're doing. The increase decrease is lowering the stress on our body. Things will come up. You're going to have feelings that come out that were kind of frozen, maybe some things that you realize you need to work on. That's where having a coach, that's where having a therapist is very, very critical. And I went to therapy. I went to therapy for this. I worked with coaches on this, even though I have 15 years in doing this. You kind of find like, I knew a woman who had a very clear binge eating disorder who was a binge eating disorder specialist. So I always say therapists need therapists, but doing this over time will then get you to a place where it doesn't mean you can't lose weight if you want to, but the meaning is totally different. The meaning about it is totally different. The time you spend in it is different. I had a wonderful client today who's been working on this with me, and she has decided for the first time since we started working together to go into a deficit. And she texts me today. She goes, "You know what? I'm really tired." And she goes, "I can't believe that I felt this way every day of my life forever." She goes, "I know that this is short term. We decide, like when you're doing a deficit with me, number one, I've got to give you the go ahead to do it. And then you decide how long do we want to be in this. And I think we're doing this for 4 weeks." She goes, "I can do this for 4 weeks. But knowing that I've decreased my movement and increased my food and how great I feel, it's so black and white that when I'm in the deficit, I want to get in and get out as soon as I can. Whereas old me, obsessed me, stayed here forever and had no idea what's going on." Like she literally said that today. So, yeah, okay. I hope that this is helpful. More questions. Does the control aspect still apply when there is restriction involved, like creating the feeling of hunger to manage? Yes, 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 yes. Great question. So, for people who struggle with their emotional awareness, sometimes feeling hunger pangs is easier or more acceptable than feeling emotion. And why? So, oftentimes these are people whose emotional state growing up was chaotic or it was silenced, right? Where I'll give you something to cry about. There's no need to cry here. You know, why are you crying? There's whatever. Or a very chaotic environment where you're walking on eggshells. Like you may have an addicted parent, a parent with mental health issues, a parent who's just emotionally immature. So you don't have an example, nor do you learn how to regulate your own emotions. So emotions inside your body, because we have to think emotions are energy in motion. There's an energy that happens with emotions, right? But if you don't learn that, number one, that's very human, and number two, like you have to allow it to kind of express itself, you're going to do whatever it takes to kind of combat it. And the more that we push down and push down, the stronger and stronger that they become. And therefore, for a lot of people, hunger pangs. Number one, when you are very hungry, by the way, my husband's about to come to the door. He's gonna be like, "What are you doing?" When you're very hungry like that or restrictive, you actually do disconnect yourself from your emotions because at a certain point, like you don't have energy to feel. But also, the pain in your belly is easier for you to focus on than actually feeling the emotion because that's so foreign to you that it is like, "Oh, I'll just restrict my food and then I don't have to feel the emotion." It's interesting because when people are being, so someone gets admitted for anorexia in an inpatient facility, they actually have to gain a certain amount of weight before we can do therapy with them because they're so disconnected because they're so thin and restrictive of food and fuel. It takes fuel and energy to emote, to feel. They're just kind of corpses. They're just, you know, so yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, it's always the discipline comments. Yes, I know. People, I know. I even for me as a coach, you know, I really try to not even make body comments, but you know, it's hard sometimes. Most of my comments are like, "How proud do you feel of yourself?" Like, "How glad are you?" or "How proud of you that you did this and you did it in a healthy way." You know, it's always trying to like compliment in that way. But yeah, those discipline comments will get you. Well, I hope you guys found this helpful. I so apologize for being 18 minutes late, but I was just eating a creamy. I was living my best life, and then I realized I have a job. So thank you guys. If you want any information on our coaching program, check out our channel. All of the links are there. This is what I do. I help individuals do everything that we talked about here today. If you want some more free content, please give me a follow on TikTok or Instagram at The Mindset of Matter. And then don't forget, we have our episodes every single, thank you, Rebecca, every single Monday, and then our live stream on Thursday. I'm going to put up a poll tomorrow about what our next topic should be, and it'll be on Instagram. So please let me know what you guys want to hear. And I'm glad I had a little therapy sesh with you. It's always fun to go back to those. It's not fun, but it's nice to go back and realize how far I've come. And honestly, I'm still strong. I'm still like tone, if you call it. Like I have a strong body, but like I eat a lot and I work out not a lot. And your body will thank you when you stop punishing it. So we forgive you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye. I forgot.